as well. But first, we're going to start with something that we usually end the first segment of the show with, the first hour of the show with, which is AJ's one A-Day. That's your name now. AJ's one-day scouting extravaganza.
Absolutely.
So where the producer, who dabbles in the world of the draft and will be dabbling more and more, digs into a very brief look at a couple of guys in the draft. So this week, we took a look at a few, I would say, polarizing maybe guys. I don't know, maybe
Possible.
not. It's one of them, it seems like I'm the only one not polarized, or that is polarized. But anyway, well, let's get started with maybe the less interesting discussion I think we could have, which is Konsta Helenius.
Okay.
We took a look at Konsta Helenius, so take it away. What was your read on the guy?
He just looked like a good Liga player who was pretty much better than a lot of the guys out there, just smarter, as you've said a lot of times. Like, he pulled off some things that I'm not sure he'd be able to pull off in the NHL. In the game that I was watching, there's a defenseman just waiting behind the net for a line change, and Helenius just came up to him, stripped him of the puck, threw it in front, and it was a goal, because that's the way the Liga goes sometimes. So he looked better than a lot of the guys there, but my feeling was, okay, so what's he going to do in the NHL? Because I don't see a tremendously high-end guy there. I was thinking more like 3C, but I don't know. Like, he's fine. He's a smart boy, but Liga hockey's weird and not very intense, and he seems to be a more intense player than a lot of the guys there, and I wonder, how is he going to handle even more pressure and more intensity when he gets to the NHL? So that's kind of the way I lean there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's generally how I've seen a lot of him a lot of the time. If this is a draft where smarts, if you're a draft person who like loves really smart players, I feel like I could see why he's sort of up near the top. Definitely just kind of gets it, reads the ice well, anticipates stuff well. But yeah, like, the data that I've got on him is very, I'd say, okay in a lot of different ways. But again, like, he's not a bad player at all. Like, when I'm a little more skeptical on him than a lot of people, it's not that I don't like him. It's just that I think I think you said this earlier, but I think he's maybe a third line guy in the NHL, maybe second line on a like as a winger or something. Just a pass first, off puck heavy guy who is smart and just knows how to move the puck. Other than that, I don't know, right?
He wasn't that great at defense from what I saw. Like, he tried,
right.
He definitely tried, but he wasn't really doing a whole lot to stop things from happening.
Yeah.
In the offensive zone, he was doing okay. Like, he was doing decent. And same thing with transition. Like, he looked better than a lot of the guys in transition, but Liga transitions kind of shoddy, as we've seen with the flying V formation that the Pelicans implemented with Brad Lambert.
I have seen two other teams do it multiple times this season.
No.
I don't know what that's all about.
Or sorry, the 5-man breakout, but it's like, it's basically a flying V.
The wall of death. I don't mind Helenius if a bunch of scouts on my team were pounding the table for him and it was like 11th overall in this year's draft. I guess I will not complain, but if I'm right, I will not forget.
If Alphonse Frey is there, I'm complaining.
Yeah, exactly. Like, there, I think, this is like, it's not that I don't like Helenius. It's just that there's a lot of guys that I think are sort of on his level or like comparable or somewhat more projectable. Because I don't know. I think with Finland, it's sort of its own animal watching that league, right? Like, the quality of player is very, very wide there, I find. Like, some guys at the top look pretty darn good for that level, but some guys, when they're at the bottom end of that league, like what you saw with Helenius, like bad play like that and just sloppiness, there's a lot of it. And if you're smart enough to make a read and capitalize on it, you can get away with a lot. And so with Helenius, it's like, what is he going to be, right? Like, I think third line is reasonable, especially with how smart he is, but yeah, I just see top 10 everywhere, even top like 7 everywhere, and I'm just thinking that might be a little bit much
and
for me.
I'm willing to bet on the brain if you can get him to be faster and you can get him to work on his skills a bit more. Because I saw him try and dangle the pants off of a goaltender. Like, he basically had an open net, and he wasn't able to do anything with it. Because he did dangle him out, but he just kind of got, like, tripped up on his own move.
Yeah, like, I when I look at Helenius, too, it's, if we're talking about players at the very, very, very high end of the draft, it's like, what does this player do better than everybody else, right? Like, with Helenius, is it his shot? I don't think so.
No.
Is it his Is it his playmaking ability? I don't think so. Is it his physicality? No. Is it his ability to carry the puck? I don't think so. Is it his defensive play on his own end? I don't think so. It's like, the reason he's kind of up that high is, like, he might be one of the smarter players in the draft, I would say. Like, he's up there. But I also think that there's a lot of players in this draft who are really, really smart and deficient in a lot of ways. Like, they don't have the best shot, they don't have the speed, they don't have the evasiveness, they don't have, the physical intensity, they don't have this, they don't have that, but they're really, really smart. So it's like, how much does it separate a guy like Helenius from these other players who are also very intelligent and seem to really get it, but just don't really show the same sort of output? I don't mind him, and I'm interested. I was interested to hear your thoughts, but
yeah, I think they're up the same alley as yours for the most part.
Yeah. Like, I have Helenius in the 20s, I think now, like early mid 20s or something, and sure. But the more interesting one, I think, where we could have a little bit more of a discussion, you took a look at the big giant tree trunk of a man in Anton Silayev. Anton Silayev got the AJ treatment this week, so give me the rundown on him, because I want to know. I want to know real bad.
I watched the elimination game for him with his team in the KHL playoffs, and he looked great for 2 full periods. Like, he was making good defensive plays. Like, he was basically stopping everything that came into his own end for a lot of the game. And, like, he'd apply pressure to guys and they'd lose pucks. Like, he looked great. And then I got to the 3rd period, and he still looked pretty good, but there were times where he held onto the puck too long and, like, just was a turnover machine, and it caused his own team to be stuck in their own end for an extended period of time. For the most part, I really liked what I saw. It's just that was the big issue. But He gets around the ice pretty well, especially in a high-pressure situation like I watched. Like, he was doing well. He looked great for most of the game. Had some decent pass attempts, too, that generated some good offensive chances. But, yeah, just wasn't great with towards the end of the game, where he's overhandling the puck and kind of shooting himself in the foot and putting himself into more trouble. But I looked at your list after I watched the game. I'm like, okay, so where does Will have Levshinov in comparison to Silayev? And I was surprised that you have him a whole tier ahead, because I like Silayev better.
Yeah, I mean, again, Silayev is kind of a weird one for me, where if you really value him and really believe in the idea of, let's just draft this guy and see where he's at in 5 years, like, because we think he could be really something, I can't really disagree with that, because I can see that, right? Like, there's just, to me, with Silayev, like, there's a lot of, I would say, like, uncertainty of, like, where he's going to be. And that kind of spooks me. Again, really, really high in the draft. I'm looking for something that I know I can bank on, and I know I can sort of work with, and I know the job that's going to be important in the NHL that player is going to have. Whereas with Silayev, it's just more that he's this very unique profile of a player who is still pretty raw, I think, like, still a bit of a work in progress, but, certainly on the right track. I think he's a lot better at the end of the year than he was at the beginning of the year, for sure. And I've seen him a lot. The thing is, like, in the games that I've seen, like, he's not, like, the thing with Silayev that I always come away with is he's not doing anything. Like, he's very, very reserved. Like, his offensive transition numbers are very passive and quiet. Defensively, they're just as passive and quiet. He doesn't really shoot the puck a tremendous amount. His team doesn't really shoot the puck a tremendous amount. It's just a very low event hockey type player, but his passing and the vision, like, when he keeps it simple, it's a lot better.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's like, well, okay, so you have a really tall guy who is not terribly thin, not saying that as an insult, but, like, he's pretty built up as he is. I think he's already beyond 200 pounds by quite a bit. He skates really, really well, right? Like that's the thing that he kind of brings to the table, is just how good of a skater he is for that size.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come around very much. But with Levshunov, like my pitch on Levshunov, to counter what you said, is just, I think about what the NHL is like. And with Levshunov, I can just see, with the right coaching and you can see it already with Levshunov, kind of what you're going to get and what he can do, especially in this year's draft again. Like, I can easily see a world where you draft Levshunov and you go, you know what, like, he may not, I don't think he projects as a super heavy offensive guy. The physical defensive play and the ability, like his backwards mobility isn't great, but neither is, I mean, and Silayev's is a little better. Like, I don't know. This is a draft right now where I'm months into this and I'm still sitting there going, I don't know. Like, there's so many guys where I don't know. And with Silayev, a lot of the time, there's just not much happening with him on the ice. I think the big thing that I've noticed as a negative is what you said was happening in the third period, where on puck retrievals and just reading oncoming pressure, and, you know, he'll try to spin off pressure and evade guys with his feet. It's just not there yet in that sense. But in terms of managing gaps and closing gaps and all those things you like to see out of defensemen, he does it pretty well. But I don't know, with Silayev, it's very much how much do you value, like with Helenius, it's like, how much do you value a guy who is extremely smart and the rest is a big murky picture? Whereas with Silayev, it's how much do you trust how rare it is to have a guy that tall with that good a set of feet under him. The rest is still a bit of a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like
I get your hesitation for sure. It makes sense.
Yeah, there are other guys where I can more clearly see where they're gonna, you know, where they are and where they could be. Whereas with Silayev, I'm just like, well, I mean, is there a world where he's a top pair defenseman in the NHL? I don't know. I don't think so.
I think it's possible.
There a world?
It's just he's not going to be the driver of that unit. He's going to be more the drive play through defense, and he can move the puck because he's a decent puck mover from what I've seen as well. Right? Like, if you can, well, he's decent. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. He's decent at it. You know, again, when he keeps it simple, he's effective. Yep.
So I don't know, maybe you draft him and Alphonse Frey in the same draft and just play them together forever, right? Like, and they just play off of each other. I don't know.
I think that would look good. The two of them.
Yeah,
together.
but like that kind of a role, right? Like if you draft Silayev and put him next to a guy who, you know, has a bit more skill and puck carrying ability and a bit more oomph to him and a little bit more offensive pop, then great, right? Like, I don't know what teams at the high end have that ready to go, but I could see it. He's an interesting one. Do you have any closing thoughts on the guy?
Yeah, I think I just missed that he is a pretty good skater for his size. Like, I probably should have led with that. I don't know why I didn't, but that's also part of the
dare
thoughts.
you?
Yeah. But yeah, I just thought he was pretty good. And I think I'd take him over Levshunov because guys who shoot the puck like crazy kind of drive me insane. And you could definitely coach that out of Levshunov, but it's like, it really does leave a bad taste in my mouth when I'm watching it. All you're doing is firing the puck on net at every single opportunity you get. So I don't know. I like his skating. I like the way he moves the puck when he's keeping it simple. He's huge, which is not something that you hear us like waxing poetic about, but all the tools he has, I think there could be a pretty good defenseman there. Not the most insane player in the world, but a guy that I totally understand why teams would go up there and draft him super, super high, because those skill sets don't come around a lot. And when they do, they tend to those guys get picked even higher than you and I would do it necessarily. But I like him. Yeah. So that's where I'm at.
He's fine. Again, like he's an interesting idea of a player, and maybe there's something there.